Hello and welcome. Thank you for listening. My name is Sarah Baumert. I'm a yoga teacher, Feldenkrais practitioner, and host of the Sarah B. Yoga podcast. The Sarah B. Yoga podcast and my practice, Body Matter, is an interdisciplinary learning space where we explore the many ways that movement can help facilitate body acceptance and awareness, reduce pain and stress, regulate the nervous system, and build strength and ease. My teaching plays with the synthesis of Feldenkrais awareness through movement lessons, traditional yoga asana, creative imagery, breathing exercises, self-massage, and a compassionate mindset to help you feel a greater sense of ease and comfort in yourself. Sarah B. Yoga and Body Matter have a lot of other program offerings. These podcasts are just a taste of my teaching. Each week I teach a range of online classes, including a gentle yoga class, a level 2 class for more advanced students, and Feldenkrais classes with monthly themes, anatomy lessons, and Q&A sessions for more in-depth study. I have 2 new online series offerings for the fall. A Feldenkrais series titled Coming to Your Senses, an exploration of the spaces of the eyes, the mouth, jaw, ears, vocal and breathing apparatus. And my second course, Wakeful Body, the blending of yoga and Feldenkrais on Monday nights. As one student recently described Monday nights, that felt like I just gave myself a massage. So these fall classes will be a continuation of some fan favorite stretching sequences that incorporate bolsters and other props to enhance the poses. There is still plenty of time to join these courses live or via the course recordings. You can find more information about these offerings in the show notes. Okay, on to today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Hello, and welcome to the Sarah B. Yoga podcast. This podcast is an intersection of my yoga teaching and my training in the Feldenkrais method. Today's podcast is constructed in 2 parts. First, I will be talking about posture as a dynamic system and giving some information on my Feldenkrais series, Posture Matters, explaining how a Feldenkrais approach to posture restoration is different from other modalities. Then we will go into an abbreviated lesson. The lesson portion of today is just a little taste of the first lesson in the Posture Matters series. Posture, including the tension in the shoulders and the neck that originates from a forwardness of one's head, is one of the most requested topics I get from students. It's a difficulty that none of us are immune to, even yoga teachers. If you are interested in finding out more about this work, join the Posture Matters series, which can always be done as a self-paced course. You will find a link to more info on this series in the show notes. So take a moment to get cozy. First, you'll learn a little bit about posture, and then the lesson will start after that, and the lesson will begin in standing. I just want to welcome anybody that's new to Feldenkrais, new to my classes. So since you're here, I have to assume that either the subject matter of posture interests you, or you read a description of the series, and perhaps you're challenged in some way by pain or discomfort in your shoulders, your neck, your upper back, somewhere in the spine, or something like being at a computer for long hours starts to become uncomfortable for you. So we will be addressing the topic of posture in this series, but perhaps not in the more traditional way one often thinks about posture, like using exercises to pull the shoulders back, or, often when I think of the word posture, I think of a soldier or somebody who's standing very tall, but also somewhat static and stiff. And Feldenkrais thought about posture in a much more dynamic way. So a lot of things contribute to our posture. And in Feldenkrais, we often refer to it as our self-organization. We have a history that influences our posture. Our self-image influences our posture. Our injuries, our emotional history, our stress, even some kind of trauma. So I would like to suggest or entertain the idea that the inverse is also true, that by improving our posture, we can influence our emotions, we can reduce our stress, we can improve our feelings about ourselves. So it's not unidirectional. It's something and there's a lot of studies to support this idea that by changing my self-organization, I can improve my mood. As my posture improves, it offers possibilities and options of feeling myself differently. So Feldenkrais uses a process of organic learning. When each one of you learned to walk or to crawl or even to talk or run, there was not a book that you were consulting. Nor was there a book that your parents were consulting. At least when I grew up, and probably when you grew up, there wasn't an instruction manual. It might be a little bit different now. I'm not a parent, but many of my friends are. And I know that there are a lot of books out there about how to be a parent. But people have, believe it or not, been learning to stand and learning to talk and walk for thousands of years without an instruction manual. Some people might even make the case that the attempt to understand, to, help the baby understand or the child understand intellectually what they're doing might actually interfere with the learning. So studies show that children that are allowed to make mistakes, allowed to make errors, learn much faster than those that are told what to do. So obviously we are no longer children. We're not in that developmental stage of learning. But as an adult, we still have a brain that's really capable of change. And Feldenkrais really believed in this organic way of learning that telling somebody what to do was not going to be the most beneficial way for them to learn. So you don't even need to have an intellectual understanding about posture to improve your posture. Each one of us has a brain that has the capacity to improve, and even more so, a brain that can feel a more optimal or easy way of standing or sitting. But, there are some things that may help you understand how to be upright, some things that might help you distinguish, quote, good posture from less good posture. So we will look at posture in a really general sense and also at an individual level. So we all have a lifetime of habits. Working with posture is then a process. Our brain has become attached to some kind of routine, some kind of habitual way of doing things. And a lot of those habits are unconscious until we have pain in the neck or the shoulders or your jaw or your lower back. And usually by the time the pain comes and we start to pay attention to it, then the habit has likely already formed. Because the body is really good at adapting to many situations in order to survive. And we're grateful that it adapts. It's when the way we inhabit the body becomes so repetitive, so long-term, that the body starts to rebel. All right, so when it comes to posture, for most people, the issue of pain and discomfort with our posture is linked to this issue of forwardness. Very few people is the issue backwardness, or that we're falling too far backward. So many things bring us forward, and there's reasons for this. How does this forwardness develop? So first, response to fear. If you think about a fear response, you don't have to, be a neuroscientist or study the brain or posture or anatomy to know that when most of us feel fear, we draw inward.
we curl inward and protect ourselves. Sometimes we run also, but there's this, if you think about the posture of it, curling in, protecting ourselves, it's a really important mechanism, but it's not something that is helpful if our nervous system is stuck there. The response to stress and anxiety, same pathways in our brain. They live in anxiety and fear live in the same pathways in our brain. So it's a very similar muscular contraction when we respond to stress and anxiety. And then we often habituate to that stress and to our environment. Our bodies, our muscular tissue develop based on the environment they are in. So if looking at a screen indoors is the environment that your brain has become really familiar with, it will start to habituate to that lack of diversity in movement. So it might be that you're sitting for many hours. A lot of people sit for multiple hours a day, and this tends to throw us forward. There's a tendency to come forward and then stay forward for hours at a time because our telereceptors, or all of our sensory receptors, most of them live in the front of our face, our eyes, our nose, our mouth. So if we want to eat something, if we want to see something, smell something, we move forward to do that. Our ears kind of help us have a little bit more width in terms of our sensory reception. But all this information is being thrown at us, right? It's coming towards us. We're making sense of it very much unconsciously often. But our telereceptors draw us forward, especially if we are paying attention to something that's right in front of us. Then, the topic of chairs come in. I won't say much about that, but sitting in chairs is really culturally emphasized and often mandatory. We will do at least one chair lesson in this series. So there's that leaning forward effect that I was talking about in terms of looking at a computer or maybe looking down at your phone. But this isn't a new issue for humans. Like computers get a really bad rap. But if you think about maybe 100 years ago, a woman on the prairie, what did she do in the evening? She was probably darning socks or something like that, right? Knitting. Anyone that has a young child or has had holding a baby in front of you, looking down. So there's so many reasons for us to move forward. But the variety of physical movement that we do now has really been diminished. Human survival. It used to rely on growing food or hunting and gathering food, which would put our body in a lot of different positions. And now many people, the way they make a living is more static, looking at a single screen at a fixed distance. That fixed distance, I'll just say a little bit about vision. There's a dominance of near vision that has been worsened from computers and screens. It's called myopia, right? Or nearsightedness. And this is important because your muscles are not only for moving, but they also are creating physiological states in the body. And this includes your eyesight. This includes the muscles of the eyes. So the tension in the eye comes from a failure to use the eyes in their relaxed and long muscle orientation. So if you look at something really far away, it lengthens the muscles of the eyes, and there's actually a more of a relaxation response. So taking time to look at things really far away, things that have layers, like a forest would have layers of trees, an ocean would have layers of waves. This is something that we used to do a lot more often, and people had less nearsightedness. So we will also do a lesson focusing on the eyes. Okay, I've talked a little bit about some of this already, these general effects of habitual forwardness. So it inhibits our movement. Certain muscles contract, which make certain movements difficult. If I need to go forward, probably no problem, but practically all other movements become more difficult. It inhibits digestion. If you think about the fear response, that curling inward, it compresses the abdomen, the intestines, the liver, the kidneys. There's the passive circulation of the organs that we need to be healthy is inhibited. It compromises our balance. The pressure on our feet, if we're falling slightly forward, if the weight of the head is so far forward, then there's going to be a tremendous amount of muscular effort happening so that you don't fall forward. And again, that's happening likely very unconsciously, that you're not thinking, oh, my body is engaged, my muscles are toned in such a way so that I don't fall forward. It's happening on its own, luckily. Then there's the inhibition of breath. Our breath, our breathing, our diaphragm are all affected by this sort of curling forward. Influences on mood and emotion. So some might say that my emotional state is my posture and my posture is my emotional state. They are very intertwined or even the same thing. So you could think of it this way. If you were an actor and you wanted to portray someone that was unhappy or depressed, what would you do to your organization to make that impression on the audience? You would bring yourself forward and down. You would draw yourself inward. So you would not make yourself tall and open and expansive. So we can all recognize how someone feels by how they organize their body. And then there's this reduced ability to respond to changes in environment. Meaning, if you need to make a quick shift, it may be harder for you to do that. But as your organization improves, all of these things will improve. You'll breathe more easily. In Feldenkrais, we're really interested in our skeleton, understanding, imagining, feeling our skeleton, because the skeleton does not get tired. It's the muscles that get tired and kind of pull us down. These specific effects of forwardness, it's the contraction of the front of the body, the contraction of the flexor muscles in the front, your chest, your abdomen, your shoulders. For a lot of people, the jaw gets involved. The hands and the feet. Why do I say that? So let's talk about the feet. If you were to look at the skeleton of the feet, and you don't even need to have an image right now, you would see that the bones in the back are bigger than the bones in the front of the foot. The bones, as you move towards your toes, they get smaller and smaller. So without being a scientist, you can infer that the larger bones are able to sustain more pressure and were designed to hold more weight than the smaller bones towards the toes. And our feet were designed to hold our weight up. When the weight of your head is thrown forward, there's a tremendous amount of pressure on the forward parts of the foot, the smaller bones of the foot. And this is when people start to say things like, I've lost the arches in my feet, or my feet have become flat, or there's extra tension in the foot because the foot's not working optimally. It's getting this extra stress on the front of the foot. So that can be an indication that we're pulled forward. So this is kind of a crazy thing. And, we probably all know this, but studies have shown that a person who's 70 years of age has lost 1 to 3 inches in height. And this loss of height reflects the compression and loss of length in the spine. So that does not create, an optimal situation. It makes us more vulnerable to different injuries and discomfort. The good news is that we're capable of regaining a lot of that lost length, capable of improving our organization of our spine. And when we do, we start to feel taller and lighter and more flexible, and all of our movement becomes easier. So each class in the series will help to elongate the spine, help you to feel taller, more upright. All right, so what does Feldenkrais have to do with this? How does it do it differently? In Feldenkrais, we start with feeling ourselves. We direct our attention to ourselves, and our brain begins to recalibrate and make changes in what we do. The way that Feldenkrais defined posture is a state in which one can move in any direction without hesitation or preparation. So if you think about how you are right now, and that's a really alert state. If a lion came running at you from the right side, would you be able to move in order to run away from it? There's many other things that might happen that you would have to respond to and be ready to. So his definition of posture suggests an importance to a fluidity and an efficiency, a very active state of being, and a way to move with minimum work and maximum efficiency. That doesn't mean there isn't some kind of effort, but if there's a lot of unnecessary effort, then the movement's going to be much more difficult and you won't be able to sustain it. And if we're needing to sustain an easy upright posture, say in sitting for a long time, then we want to find that optimal place where we can be really efficient. We can think about posture as being really relational and contextual, because life happens in all different relationships and all different circumstances. In Feldenkrais, we are learning to have an integrated experience of the whole self. So it's not one part of the body, like the neck and the shoulders. Even though I talked a lot about how the head was coming forward, we are always learning in the context of the whole self, because one part can't do anything without the whole self. And we use movement in Feldenkrais. That might seem obvious, but it's a fundamental principle is that through movement, we can change our experience of ourselves. So movement is just the doorway to change. Other people might use a different doorway. It is a process of self-awareness to change, and we start with movement. The lessons, for those of you that have never taken a Feldenkrais lesson, are really unlike conventional exercise. They work in a different way. We are interested in primarily communicating with our brain, and we call them lessons as opposed to exercises to really bring the emphasis to the fact that we're engaging our brain in a way to learn something. And when I say it's about movement, it's not about even how far you can go. And I'll speak to that in the lessons often, but rather the lessons work by combining neurologically relevant movements with this process of paying attention to your own sensations. And without that paying attention piece, if we were just repeating a movement over and over, that's this more traditional way of, maybe doing a physical therapy exercise or doing some other kind of exercise where the sensation piece and the attention piece isn't at the forefront necessarily. So the classes will have a continuity. They will build upon each other. So if there's something in a lesson that you don't understand, it's very likely that through the next lesson, your questions will become more clear. We will be on our back mostly today. If anything, you'll need something like a folded towel or a small bit of blanket to put underneath your head. All you really need to do is listen to my directions and sense and feel yourself. Each of us arrives here today with the capacity to feel the benefits. The lessons are really different than conventional exercise. The lessons work in a very different way. We're communicating with our brain. And so it's not about how far you go in the movement, but much more about paying attention to your sensations. So doing the movement slowly, only do what feels comfortable. So you are avoiding pain or discomfort. That may mean that you need to imagine a movement if there's something that's not appropriate for you. You can make the movement smaller. That can be helpful. And we'll repeat the movements, but really pausing, taking a moment to pause before you repeat a movement again. The reason for that is to just really let things settle so that each time you do a movement, it's like a whole new thing. And I'll be reminding you frequently about all of these ideas as we go along. Okay. Please stand. Turn in any direction in your room. If you feel comfortable with your balance, close your eyes. Just let your arms hang. Observe the position of your head on your spine. Just here today, not changing it. Notice if you observe your head forward of your shoulders or forward of your spine or your pelvis. And when you observe your head, do you think about the front of the head or the back of the head? Like, where did you spontaneously go to? So take a moment to observe the front of the head, where the face is. And now the back of the head. If you have ever had a sore throat and you have kind of like a scratch or a tickle in your throat and it's very high up on the back of the throat, try to imagine that space, the top back of the throat. It's very close to the back base of the skull, almost like right behind your nose. And see if that image might be able to help you sense the back of your head. And while you're standing with your eyes closed, start to notice the shape of your spine, the curve of your neck that you can sense, the curve of the upper back, the curve of the lower back. How do you imagine the lower back? What is its shape or its image? And your pelvis. And then notice the quality of your breathing. What parts or movements of your breath feel spontaneously very clear to you? It's like a way you could just very simply say, oh, I feel the breath right there. Is that easy or not? Okay, and then come down to the floor and lie on your back. And take a moment and just lie on your back. You may already know from doing lessons if you need a little something behind your head. A lot of people don't. A lot of people do. So if you're not sure, compare and contrast. Put a little something behind your head. See if that gives you a little bit of ease somewhere in the body. Okay. And then once you have that settled, you can have your legs long and bring your hands down to your lower abdomen. And notice the movement of your lower belly as you inhale. Just very simply. Not in any kind of contrived way. We're just interested in the movement of the abdomen in a natural way. Notice the back of your pelvis, how it meets the floor. Does one side of your pelvis feel to you to be wider or more narrow? Does one side feel more in contact or less in contact with the floor? And observe the lower back. Is your lower back touching the floor, or is there a curve away from the floor? Not not to judge or to evaluate, just sensing and feeling how you are lying on the floor now. And slowly move your attention up the spine, observing how parts of the spine become very clearly in contact with the floor as you move up towards where ribs are, between shoulder blades. And as you keep moving up the spine a little bit higher, do you feel that your spine starts to move away from the floor again as you get towards the lower part of your neck? So you may feel that behind the neck. Oh, right there, the spine is not touching the floor. And then again, return to your breathing, the movement of your lower abdomen. And notice the position of your head, the contact of the back of your head. Is that contact, is it a point? Is it a circle? Is it a line where the back of the head meets the floor or your blanket? Does one side of the head feel a little bit more in contact or less in contact, which might reflect that the head is turned a little bit? So we just want to feel how we are resting on the floor, taking in a little bit of data, kind of like a scientist, so that we can then observe changes at the end of the lesson. And start to bring a very smooth rolling of your head. Roll the head a little bit to one side and the other. Allow your eyes to just very gently follow that movement. And as you move your head from one side to the other, you're not concerned about how far you go. You can go much less far than you know the amount that you can possibly go. And so as you roll the head side to side, notice your chin, where your chin moves in space. Can you track your chin? And the chin is in the front. So now can you track the back of your head? If you think about that space right behind the nose, almost like you have a face on the back of you. If you did have a face on the back of you, could you track the chin that's on the back of you as you roll your head side to side? And does it change anything if you think about the back of the head? Great. And then just bring the head to the middle and bend your knees and stand your feet. And bring your feet so they are about shoulder width, making sure that the feet can firmly be on the floor without them sliding. So you want to make sure there's enough friction underneath the feet. Take your left knee and gently tilt your left knee inward. So your left knee tilts a little towards your right knee, and then bring the left knee back to where it began. And do this a few times, tilting the left knee inward. And then getting a little bit more specific about that direction of the left knee. So it tilts inward and it also moves a little away from your head. Almost as though you want to tilt that left knee inward and then direct it towards your right foot. Yeah, it's still as small. An image you might use is someone places their hand on your left knee and you begin to tilt it inward and they just gently pull your knee a little bit away from your head as you tilt it inward. That's right. So you'll feel a little tilting of the pelvis. And we're keeping the right knee relatively quiet. Great. And come back to the middle and pause. And now just try that same thing with your right knee. So your right knee tilts inward. And you think of lengthening the right knee a little away from the head as it comes inward. So the right knee tilts to the left and a little away from the head, or almost like you want to bring your right knee in the direction of your left foot. And each time you do this, can you feel what's happening with the spine? What happens to the head? Can you keep the image of your spine and the sense of your head in your global attention as you take the right knee inward and down? Great. And pause. And cross your left ankle on your right thigh. So your left knee will be pointed a little bit to the left, any amount that's comfortable. Now, if this is not a comfortable position for you, you can do all the directions in the same way, but just keep that left foot standing if this crossing of the ankle on the thigh doesn't work for you. So now with the ankle there, do the same action of tilting your right knee inward and a little away from the head. So both legs will fall a little to the left, but you're thinking about that right knee. That right knee goes to the left and a little away from the head. Great. And as you do that, do you sense the right side of your lower back? Does it get longer or does it get shorter? What can you sense there? Great. Okay, pause and bring your left foot down. Bring your right hand to your forehead. So your right palm will be on your forehead. Your right fingers are pointed to the left. Take a moment to just feel the weight of your hand rest on your forehead. Find a nice, easy way for your right shoulder to be. Softening the face here. With your right hand, gently roll your head to the left. And then bring the head back to that middle place. And do this a few times. Feeling that the hand can take over some of the effort of the neck. Getting a sense of the full weight of your head. So as soon as you feel any resistance in your neck, you don't go any further. Right? We want the movement to feel simple, easy, comfortable. Great. And pause, bring your right hand down, and cross your left ankle onto your right thigh again. And tilt the right knee to the left. Just feel if anything has shifted or changed just from this little rolling of the head. So tilting the right knee to the left and a little away from your head. And then add your right hand, bring your right hand back to your forehead. And at the same time, as you tilt your right knee to the left, can you gently roll the head, just a little bit to the left, not going too far. Remember, the movement does not interrupt the breath. If you find that it is interrupting the breath, can you make it even smaller? Great. Okay, let that go. Stand your left foot, bring your right arm down, and just pause with your feet standing. Did anything change with the relationship of the right side of your lower back and the floor? Compare the two sides for a moment. And remembering that our attention is not about the exterior of the movement. We're not interested in how big of a movement we can make, but rather your attention is oriented internally. As you do that, as you bring your attention inward, you're feeling where you can let go. Okay, cross your right ankle onto your left thigh. Now think about your left knee here. Your left knee is tilting to the right, and you think that it also moves a little away from your head. So it's like the left thigh bone lengthens away from the head, and then you bring it back to the middle. Just what's easy. Just the amount that you can do, keeping your breath very comfortable. Feeling where you can relax your stomach. Maybe you can relax your jaw a little bit, your mouth. Good. Pause, stand your right foot, and bring your left hand to your forehead. So your left thumb can be with all the fingers of the hand. And slowly start to roll your head a little bit to the right. The moment you feel a little bit of resistance in the neck, you come back. So there's no need to stretch. There's no need to go as far as you can go. You're going an amount where you feel, oh, that's really nice. That feels simple. Great. Pause. Bring your left hand down and cross your right ankle onto your left thigh again. And go ahead and tilt your knee to the right. And just observe if anything is a little lighter, a little different. What happens to the pressure on the back of the head as your knee tilts and as your knee moves a little away from the head? Can you sense that the head, it sort of gets pulled down as if the head is following the movement of your left knee? And then you can include your left hand, bring your left hand to the forehead, and as you tilt the left knee to the right, gently roll your head a little bit to the right. Great. Okay, pause. Bring your left hand down, bring your right foot down, take your legs long. Take a moment to rest. And observe, just in these first 10 minutes or so into the lesson, do you feel anything is different with your contact with the floor? Great. Bend your knees again. Stand your feet. Cross your right ankle on your left thigh again. And bring your left arm overhead so the left arm will be on the floor with your left palm facing up. Yeah, so the left arm is not floating in the air. It's not towards the ceiling, but it's maybe somewhere to the left of your left ear. And if that is not appropriate for your shoulder, you just open or widen that arm a little bit so it's maybe more straight out from your shoulder. So you find a place where the left arm can rest its weight into the floor. And now go ahead and tilt your left knee to the right again, just what's easy. Thinking of that left knee moving inward towards your midline and then a little away from your head. And as you do that, can you start to sense your chest? Maybe you can do a little less of something to help your chest soften. Reducing some of the effort on the left side of your chest so that you can feel the left side of the chest gets a little longer. The space between the ribs on the left side start to increase. It can be very subtle, and it's just from this movement of the legs. That's right. As the legs are tilting, your left arm is passive. Would you say that your left arm is kind of getting pulled with the legs? Is that your experience? Is the left arm really planted? What kind of sensation can you feel in the left arm? Great. Now stand your right foot, so both feet are planted. Leave your left arm as it is and just make a very small movement of elongating your left arm. The knuckles on the back of your hand, just feel them slide, maybe a millimeter. Maybe it's just at the elbow you feel it start to get a little bit straighter. Just that small bit, elongate and then let it go so that you can start to feel, oh, that makes the left side of my chest get a little longer. Yeah, and observe the back of your head, the back of your neck. Soften the jaw. Good. Pause. Keep your left arm there. Cross your right ankle on your left thigh. Now, as you lengthen the left arm, tilt your left knee to the right and a little away from the head, and feel what happens to the left side. So simultaneously, it's not the knee goes and then the arm goes, but at the same time, the left arm elongates as you tilt your left knee to the right. And then you bring everything back, you pause. And just what's easy. Again, we're not trying to even move into the category of stretching. You might describe it as you're getting longer from above, and from below, as your left leg is tilting, you can feel that that also elongates or opens up the left side of your chest. Great. Okay, let it go. Bring your right foot down, bring your arm down, and lengthen your legs. And bring attention to the left side of yourself. Notice, does one leg feel longer? Feel the left side of your back compared to the right side of your low back. And then just remember that sensing of the movement of your lower abdomen that we began with. Good. Stand both feet again. Keep both feet on the floor. Tilt your left knee inward and a little away from your head and feel what that's like. And feel as though somebody has your knee. They give it a little bit of a pull. And what happens to the spine? What happens to the head? Great. And then let that rest. Now try the right side. Tip the right knee inward towards your midline and a little away from you, like you're directing that right knee towards your left foot. Is there a difference between the two sides? Great. Pause. Take your right arm overhead. Cross the left ankle onto the right thigh. Keeping the right arm heavy, passive, relaxed, tilt your right knee inward and a little away from your head. And then bring it back to the middle. Does the weight of the legs moving to the left, does it shorten the right arm? Does it kind of bring the right arm more in towards your middle? Is that your sensation? And maybe at the same time, is there any kind of lengthening on the right side of the chest that you can feel? Good. Now, pause for a moment. Let's stand the left foot. And slowly begin to elongate the right arm. You've already been here. Imagining the right side of your ribs, a little bit of space between all of them. Now, as you elongate the right arm, try rolling your head a little bit to the right. And then as you relax the right arm, the head comes back to the middle. And just feel that coordination. You elongate the right arm. And maybe it's just the idea that your eyes get a little bit interested in your right arm. Great. Now, as you elongate the right arm, could you let your head roll a little bit to the left? So your eyes are just a little interested in what's over to the left side of your room. Great. Pause. Cross your left ankle on your right thigh. And now, as your right knee tilts to the left, elongate the right arm. So you have this sense of your right knee and your right hand are moving away from each other. The distance between the right knee and your right hand increases. Again, it's less than a stretch. It can be much smaller than that. Looking for the suppleness, how the ribs can be pliable. And what's happening with the head? You could play. Does the head roll to the left more easily? Does the head roll to the right more easily? Great. Let it all go. Take your legs long. We rest not so much because we get fatigued from the movements, although you can get tired from the movements. If you start to feel that, please take a rest on your own. But the rests are more to increase the ability of our brain to learn what's happening. As you rest, feel the contact of your lower back with the floor, the movement of your lower abdomen. With your legs resting like this, can you bring your two hands to the sides of your face so that your thumbs are behind your ears and your fingers are pointed upward in relation to you, so towards where the crown of the head is pointing. And with your thumbs, you can look for the base of your skull, the ridge of the occiput. And just with your legs long like this, could you do a very small movement? It can almost just be the suggestion of it, of moving your head. If you imagine that I put my hand on the very top of your head, and you want to press a little bit towards my hand. So your hands stay very soft, and you feel that you give a little sense of traction. I don't love using the word pull because it's much less than a pull of your head. But for lack of a better verb, we'll use that word. And as you're doing that, your chin is not being pulled down towards your chest, nor is it lifting or tipping back. So we're not distorting the chin. We're just giving this sense of length. Great. Okay, remember that. Bring your arms down, bend your knees, stand your feet. Cross your right ankle on your left thigh. And bring your hands back to your head so your thumbs are behind the ears. Now, very gently, as your left knee tilts to the right and away from your head, you gently give a little length as if you want to move the top of the head. If you had someone put their hand there, you want to move the top of the head towards their hand. And then when your knees come back to the middle, you let go of that little suggestion of length. So you create a little bit of traction, I suppose. But even more so, could you think that you're inhibiting the head from being pulled down from the tilt of your legs and your pelvis? So you inhibit the movement of the head to follow the tilting of your left knee. If anything, your head is going slightly towards the wall above your head. Internally, visually, you can imagine that the head is moving away from the neck, that the cervical vertebra, the vertebra of your neck, a little bit of space between each of those is starting to appear. Great. Rest, bring your hands down, bring your arms down. Just stand your right foot and just appreciate the feeling for a moment, the sensation of one side of your neck compared to the other, the back of your neck. Great. Place the outside of your left ankle on your right knee and bring your hands to hold your head. Soften the low belly. And as you start to tilt your right knee inward, just give that little suggestion of length, creating a very slight movement of the top of your head without your chin moving down, without your chin moving forward towards the ceiling. You're keeping your head from being pulled down with the rest of your spine. So you could imagine that the rest of your spine, all of your spine, is being pulled by the legs. As that right knee tilts inward and a little away from the head, it pulls the spine. And you're just holding the head there so that the head does not go with the spine. Good. Let it all go. Bring your hands down. Bring your legs long. And see if that movement of the head, that experiment, changed your contact of the spine with the floor. Good. Stand your feet if your legs are long. And take both feet, press both feet a little into the floor. So press both feet into the floor and then let it go. And when you press both feet into the floor, you might feel your lower back move a little bit towards the floor. When you press both feet down, do you sense that there's a movement of your spine headward up towards the top of the head, or does the spine get pulled downward? Right? We felt the spine getting pulled downward with all that tilting of the knees. So what happens here when you push with your feet? Good. Pause. Keep your feet there. Bring your hands back to the face. So thumbs behind the ears. The thumbs can look for the ridge, the base of the occiput. Now, as you push your feet, find the moment where it would make sense to give a little length, to give that little bit of pull of your head. So you're thinking of the top of your head moving towards the wall that's above you. So you push with your feet as you lengthen with your hands, and you let it go. Try it a few times. Remember, without lifting the chin towards the ceiling, without declining the chin towards the chest. And what image do you start to receive of your spine as you push with your feet? Can you feel a force going up through the spine? And then that little gesture of your hands is just encouraging a little bit more length. Great. Okay, bring it all down. Take your legs long. What image do you receive from the floor now? How do you meet the floor? The back of your pelvis, your lower back, the two shoulders, the back of your head. Notice the back of your head. And begin a really smooth rolling of your head, one side to the other. Observe your chin in space, your chin in the front in space as you turn your head a little from one side to the other. And as you roll your head, how far down into your chest or how far along your spine do you feel the echo of this movement of your head rolling? And as you continue to roll the head, can you imagine that you have a chin on the back of your head, that you have a face on the back of your head? And while you're turning the head from side to side, sense the back of your head. What's different when you observe this imaginary chin from behind? Do you sense a different range of movement, even with this imaginary process? Does it change something? Great. Okay, let that go and take your time to roll to your side. Come on up to sit. And take as much time as you need to come up to stand. Allow your head to go where it goes spontaneously. And just observe, would you say you feel taller or shorter? Without any expectation. And sense the head, the position of the head. If you had an easy way to measure the spine, would you say the spine is longer or shorter, or what do you feel? What's your sense of your spine? How is your weight on your feet? Are you more on your heels or less on your heels? Great. And then just take a little walk. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you're interested in diving deeper into this work and this subject matter, you can join the Posture Matters series, which can also be done as a self-paced course. You will find a link to more info on this series in the show notes. Please let me know if you have any questions. Be well. Are you enjoying this podcast? I've chosen to offer these audio recordings freely for over 15 years. I do this because research shows yoga, yoga nidra, and Feldenkrais to be valuable practices, those which I would like to share widely. Dana, the Buddhist practice of generosity, has always been a pillar of my business. And more generally, Dana is the inclination to give without expecting any form of repayment. It does, however, take a fair amount of time, effort, and cost to maintain and keep the podcasts available. If you feel you've benefited from what you've learned from these classes, then please do consider making a contribution towards the maintenance and upkeep of the classes. It will help ensure that I can continue to offer the podcast classes freely and keep generating new material. Give what you can, give what feels good. If it's too little, it won't feel good. If it's too much, it won't feel good. Links to support the show monetarily can be found in the show notes. And other ways to give include sharing the podcast with others, leaving a 5-star rating and review, or just sending me an email with how the classes have affected you. Thanks so much.